Hey, everybody. Welcome to this next episode of Paranormal Peeps podcast. And we have quite the guest for you guys today. But before we introduce her, let's see who we got around the desk today.
Jamie.
And Josh. And Elisa is bumming it in Hawaii. So lucky her. So we have the host of Paranormal Life with V.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome.
Very excited.
Yeah, this is a bit of a not, I wouldn't say challenge, but it was fun getting you on the show.
Quest. Yes. Yeah, but I made it. I finally made it.
Yeah, and we're super happy to have you here. What got you into the paranormal?
It's been a part of my life since I can remember. My mother said when I was just a baby, I'd, stare off at things or smile. My most vivid recollection I have communicating with spirit was when I was about 3 years old, living in Denver. We had this big 2-story Victorian home, and I would like to play downstairs. And downstairs is where my friend, I used to call him Bob, would be. He was like this really sweet older man. I thought he used to stop by, was like a neighbor. I was so young, didn't really, understand, but I knew that he was there, and he would, give his little hellos and whatnot. But, growing up, I experienced so many things on every level, from very playful spirits, good spirits, to very malevolent, at times demonic things. So it's been a journey, but I'm also obviously a medium. If you couldn't tell by now, being able to see and communicate with spirit all my life. I'm also a empathic intuitive, and it's been, like I said, a journey, but I think it's been something that has been more than that to me, because it's like coming out of a closet in a way that I've repressed it for so long. And I think many people who are a part of the paranormal life and are very spiritual and have these abilities, I think for the most part, hide their abilities, hide their gifts, don't talk about it. So I think it's not only been a journey, but it's been a courageous step forward to telling my story. But yeah, that's probably the first time that I really remember when I first started being introduced to the spirit world, was when I was 3 years old.
Wow, very young age.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I don't remember 3, so.
Yeah. I remember Colorado, I miss it. I miss it there. Being in Arizona, and I'm like, oh, I miss Denver. I had the best years of my life there.
Yeah, the two states are vastly different.
So different.
Yes.
What did your mom think? Like, if you're talking to Bob down in the basement, how did she perceive that?
Growing up in a very Catholic upbringing with strict parents, I don't know how they dealt with it then. I was so young. But as I grew older, my dad would, he'd always have, still to this day, holy water on hand. So he'd bless the house. If I woke up having, which happened all the time, night terrors, or when I would feel or see things, I'd comment about it. And it wasn't like, oh, let's sit down and talk about it, sweetheart. It was more like, they wouldn't dismiss it. It was kind of like, shh, don't talk about it kind of thing. So there were times when I would get dismissed, and I wished wholeheartedly all my life that my parents would at least have that conversation with me. Then as I got older, things started to really get, I'd say that activity started getting really dark, bringing in the priests and whatnot. But still, I'm not sitting down and talking about it. It was more like, you watch too much scary movies. You bring in too much books about the occult into the home. So it's kind of like you're bringing it up upon yourself, kind of, in a way.
Yeah.
Now I have to say, thank God my parents aren't as closed-minded as they used to be. They're actually very proud of me, and they support the show. They support me. But growing up, yeah, it was, really scary for my parents, I think. And there's a cultural aspect to it, being Mexican American. There's a lot of urban legends that we've been brought up with, scary stories. And then when you bring in the religion with Catholicism, there's things that we're told, don't talk about this, don't have this in your home, stay away from this kind of stuff. If you're not, God will punish you, that kind of stuff. So,
yeah
that happened.
I can understand that. I grew up Catholic as well, in a Catholic home.
Yeah.
And the experiences I had growing up were terrifying.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't paranormal stuff either. It was just the way at least our church talked about the paranormal, very, very evil. It's there are no such things as ghosts, at least to that group. It's all demons. And so that's all evil. And so if you see somebody, it's got to be a demon, and it's, and that terrifies you as a kid when you're learning that in first communion at like 5 and 6 years old.
Right. Yes. I hear you. The same thing happened with me. Same thing. And I think that's why I closed myself off so young, and why, I have friends and family who listen to my podcast and they're like, why didn't you say anything? I'm just like, I learned at a very young age not to.
Yeah.
I really learned not to. So.
Yeah. I honestly think it's because of the TV show successes that have been going on for the last decade or 2 decades, that people feel more comfortable talking about the paranormal.
They do.
Because before, at least for us, like if you were talking about ghosts and stuff like that, it was, you have an overactive imagination, and you've been watching Halloween too much.
Yeah, right. Oh, I heard that so many times too. But it's been actually a wonderful experience to be a podcaster and be a part of, especially on the Twitter community of other podcasters, finding so many like-minded people who have such similar stories to myself. It's wonderful. They have the same thing. There's so much more things nowadays that make people more comfortable talking about their experiences.
Oh, absolutely. And knowing that there's other individuals out there as well that have had similar experiences growing up and throughout their lives and stuff, and knowing that when you're talking to these people that you're like, I'm not alone.
Oh, yeah. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
You're not alone. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, you mentioned we mentioned your podcast and stuff, but what is it that got you into doing your podcast? Why did you start it?
I've always wanted to, make almost like a documentary or even write a book, but I'm not skilled on either of those levels, writing or, filmmaking. So I was like, when I heard about, how easy podcasting was, and many people started doing it during the pandemic, I think, wow, the percentage of new podcasts that were, created during that time is
right.
Very, very high. I think I needed something to do at that time. It was a very hard time. I started back in October of 2020. I just felt like it was time to tell my story. It just it was this calling I had to do it. And I started off not, expecting anything out of it. It just felt so good to talk about it. And it was kind of like talking to an imaginary audience that I know was there, and that I know whoever was going to hear it was going to receive it because they in some way were going to be helped by my story or be inspired by it. And no matter how many people that reached, I was just like, I want to continue to do this. I want to continue to do this stuff and bring on people who've experienced encounters and who have been chastised and been the black sheep of their family for so long, because people think they're odd and abnormal. So I just find it as like I look at it as like a lighthouse, my podcast. People navigate toward it who are either stuck in that darkness or have been in that place. And it's, there's always that light at the end of the tunnel. We're not alone in this world.
Absolutely. That beacon of light for others out there, other individuals going through the same things. I love it. That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Thank you.
who has been your favorite guest or guest spot that you've done?
Oh man, oh no. I've had so many. You know what? I love that each and every person has had, when it comes to cryptids, my friend Asher's has had like the best stories. And she loves to talk about Mothman. She's like the Mothman expert. When it comes to, just different experiences, ghosts, doppelgangers. What else have I talked about? My goodness, there's been so many. I can't pick and choose. Their stories are just, they just blow me away. They're phenomenal. And I know these people very well. I've brought in people that I've gotten to know so well over Twitter and learn about their story. And, I always tell people when they come on, before they come on my show, don't tell me anything, because I really want to experience things firsthand. And I really want the audience to feel, my reaction. So there's people that I've talked to for so long, and they haven't told me an experience, and I go, no, let's save it for the show, because I really want this to I want this to pull at me. So yeah, it's been great. I talk about everything on the show, and I think one of the ones, if I'd have to choose something that really affected me for a long time, my friend Greg from MSV podcast came on. He's one of my best friends. He's very highly intuitive like me, a medium as well. And he had a horrible experience, and it really started with using the Ouija board with one of their friends. And from there, things just started to happen very badly. He talks about an experience with a poster he had. It was given to him, I believe, from someone who was a teacher in school. It was of a panda. And he wasn't the only one who saw this. His sister also experienced this, which makes it very, so scary, because there's an eyewitness to it. The poster changed. The panda had this, as he said, my sister came, screaming, and, said the panda's face became demonic.
Oh,
and
geez.
There was, yes, there was no way of putting it. I know they tore it up, they got rid of it, but I that affected me so long, because I know Greg, and it was really hard for him to talk about. And there was other things that happened in that home at that time that were just so terrifying. That was probably the one that really stuck to me, because I love pandas. I grew up having those animal posters around my room too, and the thought of something like that happening as a child is so terrifying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That creeped me out. Yeah.
Just not really having, probably as a child, the understanding of why or how that could be,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
is frightening in itself.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that'd be terrifying.
I don't know. I'd rip all my posters off the wall. I'm sorry. I'd go burn them or something, but.
Yeah, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah, and then it's interesting, too, because, the Ouija board, the spirit board stuff, we are very big proponents of not using them at all, staying away from them. But you find, especially on Twitter, there's a lot of people who are there's nothing wrong with them. They work great, and they're fine, and they're safe. And it's if they were that safe, then you wouldn't have all of these stories running around.
Well,
exactly.
And it's not just that, though. I don't think the Ouija board itself is necessarily evil. I think what it is, it's the intent of the users when using it. Because a lot of people go into it, hey, let's do this. Let's use the Ouija board, or, and let's call spirits forward. And you really just don't know what it is you're calling forward.
Exactly. And it's kind of like people who live in a home and experience nothing, and then someone moves out and they experience a haunting. It's kind of like something that's dormant, and it just waits for the right person and someone who's open or has abilities. And I swear I've seen it happen, the same thing. I personally have never used one. I ran out of a sleepover one time when it was brought out, because I was just no, bad feeling, don't want to do it.
Right.
But I've had people who experience nothing from them, and are very skeptical about it, and just they're like, this is just fake. It's fake sorcery. This isn't real. But I've had so many other people, more than not, say they've had some very powerful, negative, evil things happen after they've used one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've only ever touched one once.
Yeah.
And it was during an investigation, actually. We were at someone's home, and they were having some issues in the home, and so we were concerned that it was potentially associated to the Ouija board. So we took it out and started cleansing it and going through that roll through it, and it didn't actually end up being the Ouija board at all.
No.
It was a Bop It.
One of those
Oh
Bop
my
It games.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah.
It was a haunted Bop It.
Yeah.
And
I would have never known.
And it was crazy because we put it on the table, right? And no one's touching it.
Oh, we weren't even standing near it.
And it starts going off and talking on its own.
Yeah.
Oh God. I got the chills. Ooh.
Yeah. At one point, so when it lays kind of dormant for a while and you haven't touched it for a while, it says that I'm turning off now. It'll say that, right? Well, we had it on the table and we were over like in the living room area, so we were nowhere near it. And it says, I'm not going to turn off. That's what it said. And we were like, what? Yeah,
Oh,
it was
God.
crazy.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, no. Ooh, that's so creepy.
Yeah, it was an interesting investigation.
Yeah, it was.
But
sounds like
yeah. So we obviously don't talk about using Ouija boards or don't suggest anyone using them just because of all the negative things that people have had happen to them with them.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you mentioned like on your Twitter page and stuff like that you're helping people with dealing with the paranormal, and I believe you mentioned using the tarot cards. Is that correct?
I do card readings. I also do spirit readings, so mediumship, I'll channel as well. But tarot cards is crazy because, and a lot of people, I've seen there's so many groups on Twitter who are just like, they go at each other and they're just like, you're not a true tarot reader if you haven't done this. So I've been self-taught. I don't do traditional tarot. I just do my own way of reading, the way that I've been guided by spirit to do. And it's my favorite thing to do. I absolutely love it. I'm very careful with it. But yes, I do that. And I have a wide range of decks that I use. So whenever I'm called to do it, I it's definitely something that I do for people when they request it. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
How does that work? Because I've had one tarot card reading done way back when I was in high school. So that was
ages ago.
Almost 30 years now.
I think that it really, we were just talking about intent. I really feel that it really depends on the reader and the person who is going and asking questions. So I think for me, I really started off small. You do readings for your friends and your family, and then it's like people start referring you and you get a bunch of other clients. But I don't know. It was really, I'll tell you, it was a great tool to help me open up my abilities a lot more, to be honest with you. And I'm really grateful for that. I really started with using an Oracle deck. I really like to use Oracle cards. That's my favorite. But
what are those? What are Oracle cards?
So that is more, I'd say, about life changes and more matter of fact things. It's more of the journey. And tarot's like very on point and like in the moment. And I don't know. I feel there's a difference personally. When people are coming to me with life questions about career or relationship or life path or life journey, I'll do a full spread for them, which is usually like a 10 to 12 card spread, depending. But it is about the experience for me that I enjoy. I enjoy how the cards just fall in order for people. And I always tell my clients, this is what you need to know right now. And the future is so subjective. And by no means do I like to call myself a psychic, because I myself cannot foresee the future. I do not like to tap into people's emotions and read them. It's kind of like reading through someone's journal. It's just not a right thing to do.
It's personal.
So I always tell my clients, like live in the moment. The more we worry about the future, like I said, it's so subject to change. It's all about our life choices, but I love people peace after, it's, you get the reading that you need, what you want. People expect certain things, and sometimes you just get what you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so is there I know like client, whoops, sorry. I want to say patient-client confidentiality, but that's not quite the same thing.
Yeah.
But is there a story you can share about a tarot reading that was, particularly meaningful or exciting that happened?
I like when I get those readings that are, forcing a pregnancy, especially from a couple who have struggled so much and had so much heartbreak through it. Or, it's hard. Of course, no one wants to give a bad reading, but also seeing that even though they go through probably a very hard, traumatic phase in their life, but seeing all the good that's coming from that. And just, I think what it gives to me from readings is seeing that things just always work out. There's just this circle and things flow the way that they need to, but I think my favorite, it's not a tarot reading, but one of my favorite readings I've done, it's very recently. There's a very sad case, and in fact, it made the news here in town. This really young man was run over, killed. It didn't come out that he was run over, but when I made contact with him, I had his grandmother reach out to me. I used to see her daughter as my client as well. Grandmother reached out to me, really wanted to make contact with her grandson, said he was killed by this woman. And when I made contact with him, there was all these pieces that came together. And she was just like, this hasn't even this hasn't been made public. You're talking about things that, were said in the report. And I think when I get those readings and people confirm and validate me, it makes me feel like, wow, wow, because there's times when I think, I don't know if this happens to many other intuitives and sensitives, but you do have doubt. And sometimes like, man, that rate sounds way off, but I've learned to try to dismiss that. But when she felt so validated, and when she knew that this wasn't an accident, and also how there was no pain. I'm sorry, I get so emotional because he was such a good person. He was so young. He was taken so young. But especially when I do these spirit readings for people and I do make contact with the other side, the amount of peace that I channel from them, because they're in another place, they're in the afterlife, and channeling how I'm so sorry. There are no words, She wanted to know if he was at peace. And I said, of course he is, he's feeling this right now. And, I'm overwhelmed with that feeling. Like, oh, it's the most beautiful feeling of all. Makes you feel like nothing on earth is a problem. Everything that we think about here doesn't matter. It surpasses things.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
giving her that peace and letting her know certain things, like when she's sitting on the couch and that lamp next to her starts to go on and off, that's him. And she goes, oh my God, how did you know that? I'm like, he's showing me that he plays little pranks on you and goes like that to your nose. And she goes, oh my goodness, that was him. So that was probably my favorite one. It was a very emotional reading, and that just happened. And it was such an honor to do that for her. And because of, I have to say, because of his death, there are going to be some changes in laws here in Arizona. So I'm very proud of his family for really, honoring his memory and going forward in legislator to get a lot of, these law passed with reoffending criminals.
Absolutely. Wow. Just to be a part of that whole process and to bring those pieces to that family so that they could kind of piece some things together there. And just to know that their loved one is okay, is at peace, and, and that there was good that came from it, from such a tragic, happening. I can imagine that that's just a very wonderful and at the same time overwhelming feeling.
Oh yeah,
that comes through, and you can just see it and hear it in your voice. Just just sitting here listening to you, you can just hear how empathic you are, and how you just really tune into all those things. So that's amazing. That's really amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's always, I don't know, it's always good to see people do good with their talents and their gifts.
I love it because with all the negative forward things in the world today and everywhere you look it feels like that's at the forefront. And, to look and try to find the good, it's a bit of a struggle, but it is very much out there. And it's with folks, such as yourself that do the things you do that help others, reconnect or, get answers and such. And so there is a lot of good out there, guys. You may have to look a little harder, but it's worth it because it's there.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to do, but I think that we have to watch out and be careful with one another. And, we're all human. We all have feelings and everything that's happening in the world, especially if you're saying, yes, I am an empath, and there are many people out there like me, and they're feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders and all the dark energy that's flowing around. So it's just so good to stay grounded and stay balanced. And even though my life is really chaotic at times, I don't let that deal with my inner world. I try to stay as balanced spiritually as I can. Or than that negative energy wants to do, then knock you off of your feet when you're already weak. So it's always good to stay on your toes and
absolutely
sage yourself, stay cleansed, meditate, pray, whatever you need to do to stay in a good space.
That's very good advice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I was actually going to touch on that too. I was going to ask you because Jamie's a bit empathic.
I could tell. I was going to say that.
And Elisa, our other co-host, is also empathic and sensitive as well. And so the question I have for you is, how do you deal with just all of the being able to feel all of these people's emotions when you go to like Walmart and all of these places? How do you deal with that and keep yourself from having that really affect you?
First of all, I say thank God for pickup now. You can do pickup in the store now. But, when I met, I just came back from a very long vacation. We went to the beach in Mexico, and there's just, it was wonderful. It was great. But yeah, I get really exhausted. I get really tired. It's kind of like, I'd say, I don't know, holding up, like you're in a cardboard box and you're holding up everything. Like I feel like I'm in this box all the time trying to hold my shield up, and it's exhausting. But sometimes it's, hey, I have to be honest with people. It's overwhelming. It's straight up overwhelming at times. It's depressing. You feel all these emotions, and I think that's the best thing to do is to just allow yourself to feel them. Mm-hmm. Repressing things is so bad. Take it from me, but I'd say the thing that really overwhelms me the most is probably going to social gatherings more often, just because I feel like if I'm close to those people, bringing everybody together, it's like, I feel a lot. I feel a lot when I'm around them, and it's really hard not to. But, when you're, I think that's the hardest part is turning that off. And I've learned to, again, but I think it's harder when you know people and you get that feeling like, they're envious or just, being negative, and it's hurtful. It's hard not to show it on your face when you're around someone in your family or a group of friends or acquaintances and you know that they feel negatively towards you, or you're around a person who you say, you know, I don't trust her, and someone's like, you know, how can you say that? You don't even know her. And you kind of explain it to them. Well, I'm an empath. I'm pretty much, I can see right through. You know, I'm a sensitive. I can feel this person is bad news. You know, you can't explain that. So I've lived and learned through my experience, just, you know, keep things to myself, certain things. But, you know, at that time, when I do feel overwhelmed, you know, it's really good to just, you know, again, center, breathe. I breathe like crazy. I do a lot of breathing exercises and, you know, surrounding myself in my own personal shield. But I think that's the most important part for people who are empathic, to do that religiously. No matter what, even if you're going to the gas station, you step foot outside your door, center and protect yourself.
Right. Absolutely. Like clear release and cross over all that negativity.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, going out in the public can be tough for a lot of people in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's so bad out there right now. Who wants to?
Right.
Who can afford to?
That's the other problem.
Right? Who can afford to do anything?
Oh man. Yeah. So. Oh.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
Voice in my home, and I'm all alone.
Oh my.
It's okay. That happens.
As long as it's nothing bad.
No. My home's just, I have people coming in and out, but it's beautiful here. It's a really good energy, but I'll be surprised. I want to know if you guys picked up on anything.
Oh, when we go back and listen, we'll have to let you know, because a lot of times when we do these, we end up getting a voice or two that comes in. Usually, so
same here. I have a scrubber. I call him my scrubber. My friend D. He'll listen to my episodes and be like, "I found another one." And you know, like he finds EVPs here and there. So
nice, love it.
Yeah,
it's always fun.
I'm so sorry, but I definitely missed your question.
Oh, I didn't get started on it. So
okay, no, we're good.
Yep, we're perfect. So no, I was going to ask. It's interesting because you talk about growing up Catholic and also being sensitive. It's interesting when you look at religion and the paranormal. So I was just wondering, how has you being involved in the paranormal changed any of your religious views or how you feel towards those things?
You know, I think that my faith has actually kept me very protected, and because I think things would have been a lot worse. But I feel like growing up that way and, you know, doing my First Holy Communion and confirmation, I feel has brought a very high level of protection around me. But not only that, being able to communicate with the afterlife and knowing for a fact that, you know, I've had also religious experiences. So I feel like my faith is very strong. And I always tell people I have a really good relationship with God. And I know him in many forms, and I do. I've done a lot of research in every religion. I've still very into practicing Buddhism, and one of my very, very favorite teachers, and he just recently passed. Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, which he had this book called Living Buddha, Living Christ, I believe. Sorry, don't quote me on that, but he spoke all the time about, how Catholics were just welcome into his monastery to practice, because he was just like, Jesus is like the Buddha. Buddha is a word that means enlightenment. We can all have that in us, that ability. So he changed the way that I perceive and look at things. And, I feel like God appears in different forms and in many ways to many cultures. So for me, I know what God looks like. Not personally. I meant meaning like what he looks like to me,
right.
And what I perceive him to be, and what I perceive, what I believe in him to be. So, I think that my religious upbringing has helped me. I don't say I'm very religious per se. I don't go to church as much as I used to. I used to get very ill when I would go into church. Actually, I used to faint.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that was during a really hard time. So I have like these very mixed feelings about it. Want to bring my children into it. I want my children, they've been baptized already. I want them to do their Holy Communion, of course, but I'm not active in the church. I'd say I'm a much more spiritual person than anything.
I can
Okay.
totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very much kind of in the same boat. We don't go to church. We have in the past, of course. Finding one where we're currently at was difficult. And we never did find one that we're comfortable with.
No, not long term. No,
Not long term.
Yeah, comfortable has a lot to do with it, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's about the energy. It's about the feeling you get when you're there.
100%.
Yeah. So
I've known a lot of religious people. I'm so sorry. A lot of religious people in my life who have been really easily manipulated.
yeah.
And they're quite evil themselves.
So I can relate to the whole more spiritual
yeah,
than religious aspect. I really can.
yeah. It's interesting though, because I look at it too as a form of like the paranormal is a way of form of validation, right? Because the one thing that religion usually teaches is that there's something after this life, and people are like, well, you can't prove that there's life after death. And it's like, but if I can talk to a spirit and these spirits are talking to us, that pretty much proves that there's something after this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, skeptics will be skeptics if they, stay. I've known people to change their views, but, I've learned to just stop fighting with people like that and try to, convince them. It takes so much out of me. And it's if it's not there, if it's not right in front of them, there's nothing that I can do.
Well, and even sometimes when it is staring them right in the face, they just, you got those closed-minded skeptics. You got open-minded skeptics that are like, okay, I don't really think so, but there could be something, right? But then when you got the closed-minded skeptics, it's like, don't bother butting heads with them because it's just, and we're not out there to convince anybody ourselves either.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own journey.
Exactly. They have their own journey. And I have a lot of skeptical people as well. And they know how I am and what I do. And they still, make those comments or say things.
Of course.
Just ignore them. Just ignore them.
Right.
It doesn't make them bad people or anything.
No.
Dismiss it.
Exactly.
So, you've already touched on a handful of like paranormal experiences, doing mediumship and some stuff back in your past, but what is one event that is the most memorable to you, either positive or negative, whichever way you like to go with that?
Man, wow. I think just because I have a whole bunch of things that I'm feeling right now. Let's talk about, I'll bring that up. So growing up, I think it was during that time that I was actually in catechism school. I was going to catechism, and I didn't realize this until just recently, the past year or two. Wow, the activity in our home really amped up before I really made my first Holy Communion. I was sleepwalking a lot. So I'd wake up and I'd always end up in the bathroom with the lights off, and I'd be standing in front of the mirror. So I'd kind of just like wake up and I'd just like run back to my room. And there were things that would always happen at night. And it was mostly the whole wake up, have a night terror, felt something in my room, felt something holding me down in bed. I could down, not being able to scream. Those things happen. And I would see like these little circular, furry, dark, shadowy things. It was like one time actually when it darted across the room and it went under my sister's bed where she was sleeping, because we shared rooms. And when it did that, it made like this when I get goosebumps, like sinister laughing.
Oh,
while it did that. And I think that was also the period of my during that period that I saw in Spanish we call them duendes. They're like dwarfs. People call them part of the fae. But it was during the day. I was at home. It was me, my mom, and my sister there. We're doing chores. My mom was like, hey, I need you to dust the living room. So I get the pledge bottle. I shake it. The top of the bottle rolls under the couch. So I get down on my hands and knees. I look under and I see it. It's small. It's this old man's face. I'm getting chills. And it has like very raggedy clothes on. And I scream and I kind of just like backpedal on my hands. And my mom comes. I was just like, I saw something under the couch. And, at this point, my mom was just like, be quiet. What are you talking about? She looked under the couch. There was nothing there. And it was so scary. I dreamt of it for a full week. And it appeared in like garden gnomes. So there was an episode of Goosebumps that I refuse to watch to this day with garden gnomes, just because I had that recurring dream for like a week.
Right.
And it's a very weird thing to confirm that I did see this. My mom told me just a couple years ago that she actually had a dream. It was during the same time. I wonder if she actually dreamt of it that night. But she said, I had a dream. We were in the house, in the same exact house, and there behind the TV set was this old man, a small little old man, and he like peeked behind the TV and looked, and that when she described him to me, it was the same thing that I saw.
Wow.
So for my mom to dream it and to describe the same thing that I saw, it terrified me.
Absolutely.
It terrified me. Yeah. So I'd say that period of getting receiving my first Holy Communion, that was a very, I call it the time in life where I was terrorized, I still don't know fully to this day what it was, but I do know it was because, I was trying to get in there before I really did receive that, I guess, what do you call it? Just like this religious bestowment of, I don't know, protection. But it really amped up for sure during that time. It was a very scary time.
That would be
very traumatic.
I can't even imagine that. And just to have that validation, like your mom telling you all these years later that, hey, look, I saw this and this is what it looked like. And you're like, oh my word, it's exactly what I saw.
Also, right. It also angered me because I was like, it would have been nice for you to tell me.
Right.
But I just think my parents always reacted in anger because they were scared. And which a lot of parents do with these kids, they just dismiss them. And I think they're afraid.
Yeah. I would say that's very accurate.
Well, and I think a lot of people are still very terrified of the paranormal.
Well, just of the unknown itself.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, it's easy to say, well, yeah, that's nothing. Just go back to sleep. Like there's nothing going on.
Exactly.
And sometimes kids, like especially younger kids, can be very impressionable in that avenue. And so there's a sense of protection you want to give them, because you don't want to fully validate what they're seeing and feeling, because you don't want to freak them out. In the same token, we don't want to freak ourselves out too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I say that's accurate.
Blame on them,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the worst part, is when they blame you for it.
That would be difficult.
Yeah.
Confusing and difficult. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. It has been.
So, I don't know if if you have or not, but have you ever been on a paranormal investigation?
I have never been in a paranormal. It's something that I've always thought about doing, but then, having kids and, knowing how sensitive I am, I know I protect myself, but it's never a guarantee that you're not going to bring something home. Knowing my kids are both sensitive as well as I am, I do my best to shield them from that as best as I can. Some things, still get in and not get in, but, try to make themselves known. But I think that it's something that me and my husband want to do someday. There's many times where I guess I've, I mean, I used to do house cleansings, not investigations per se, but I'd go and do house cleansings. And my cousin went with me one time and she wanted to bring her little digital recorder and she wanted to check for EVPs after. And I believe that was the time where my arm caught on fire out of nowhere. It was really before I even entered the home. Something just really didn't want me to go in as I was saging. It just happened just very too fast to count. Something popped behind us. It drew our attention as we looked over, and then that's when I looked down and my arm was on fire.
Oh my word.
The literal fire, like flames.
Yeah. Literal fire. My cousin had to come and help me put it out. I was putting it out myself and doused it with holy water. That was a very hard cleansing. They were being tormented by like a curse by one of her sisters who was practicing witchcraft in Mexico.
My goodness. Very scary.
That was a really scary time. But yeah.
Totally understand the trying to, especially if your kids you've passed kind of down your sensitivity to them, trying to protect them and stuff. So I get why you wouldn't probably as willingly go out and do the investigative portion of the paranormal.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff you're going to walk into a home and it's, you just never know.
You don't. And that's very true.
Yeah. And we've actually, we've only ever done one home investigation. Mm-hmm. We stick to the more commercial side of things. So like
humans who have passed on.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not that we don't run into the other non-human
we just
things.
don't seek them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is perfect.
Yep.
That's exactly what I say. Don't
seek it out.
That stuff. No, don't seek it out.
It doesn't mean you're not going to run into it, but don't go looking for it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if there was one place that you'd want to go investigate, whether it's in the U.S. or abroad, where would it be? Where would you love to go?
Oh my goodness. Oh, you're talking about a true, like I mean, that one person that loves all those investigative, ghost hunting shows. Man, there's so many of them, but let me think about that. I'm not too far from Tombstone and I love Tombstone. I'd love to do an investigation there.
Oh, we would too. We've been a couple times.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Next time you guys are in town, call me.
Definitely.
There's something I have with old Hollywood. I get so drawn to that, and I just want to, making contact in those haunted homes. That there's so much history there, and I just get so caught up in those ghost stories where old starlets are, old Hollywood starlets are still haunting and you still see them, the woman at the Hollywood sign. Wow. That's just.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that story. Yeah. There's this fascination with, the old time, black and white movies and the Hollywood era and, back then. And
really the golden age of cinema, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
100%.
Because you get into what?
100%.
I mean, Lucille Ball will be in the end of that, but you get into like
Clark Gable,
the Black Dahlia.
Yeah.
That. Yes. Oh, fascinated by that.
All of those stories.
I was very, even to this day, just very, just enraptured with like the whole Sharon Tate.
Oh, yeah.
Not just her murder, but just her herself. I just was like, I'd love to maybe communicate with her someday. I don't know. That was just something
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find out the truth behind it if she would tell you.
I think there would be a part of her that would really open up to me. I don't know why I've always felt that way, but I do think she'd tell me. I don't know.
Well, I definitely hope you get that opportunity one day for sure.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Yeah.
Make that part of my life someday. People keep telling me that, like, oh, you're gonna get discovered. You're gonna be doing all these things. I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see what you're seeing.
Oh my goodness. Well, definitely if you were to take a trip down to Hollywood, I mean, the Hollywood sign would be, if you could get up there, right, that would be a great place to go. I think the Queen Mary down there
Yes.
would be an amazing place for you to go
Once
as well.
it reopens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Winchester Mystery House.
Oh, you're
that
naming all of the
right?
Let's do it. We should do an investigation together.
We should plan a trip.
Well, see, I've always wanted to do so since the first time we got into the birdcage and we had our crazy experiences there.
Yeah.
Right?
I would love to go back. And that's so when we first went to the birdcage, I wasn't into the paranormal. I was actually still terrified of it. And so, but we were in there and we went through 2 sets of batteries inside the birdcage theater.
Lithium batteries, brand new.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then when we walked out and got back onto the street there, it went full power.
Yeah, the power came back to the batteries. Yeah.
You know, that reminds me of there's another place, you know, Bisbee. Oh, it's such a beautiful little town.
Little mining
Bisbee.
town. Yeah.
Right? The Copper Queen. Oh, I would love to go there.
Yeah. Queen Anne Mine.
Yeah. We did a tour inside the Queen Anne mine.
Yep.
Yes. Uh-huh.
That'd be great if we can investigate there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll have to get it set up.
Yep.
Because it's really not that far. Like we are only 9 hours to Phoenix from where we live, and so you know, from Phoenix to Tombstone is a short hop at that point in time.
And we're used to long drives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Plan it. Let's do
Exactly.
Absolutely.
We should.
Absolutely. So where can people find you? Find your podcast and find you on social media.
Well, you know, podcast available everywhere: Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can find me over on Twitter at @VLifeParanormal. That's my Twitter handle. That's basically the only socials I have. I'm also on Good Pods, so if you're part of Good Pods, you get your podcast there. Go find me. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So to all of our listeners out there, you know, go check her out. Go check out her podcasts. Follow her on her social media pages.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And where can they find us?
You can find us on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast, as well as Cold Spot Paranormal Research.
Yep. And you can find us at Twitter at CPR Paranormal and on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research. And like always, everybody, stay ghosty, my peeps. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.